Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to say thanks who take time and you are here with us. As you already know, International Coaching Week has begun worldwide, and today's webinar is being held within this framework of this week. And I would like to introduce our chapter member, Irinka Toidze from United States. She's Irinka. Thank you so much that you are so far, but your engagement, your involved to work to our chapter is very important. And please.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Irma. I'm gonna share this screen real quick and everyone can see my screen, right? Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm really excited to talk to you all. Thank you, Irma. Thank you, Sopo, for organizing, and all the other organizers as well. So today I wanted to talk to you about the power of listening. As coaches, we know listening is quite important, but I wanted to talk through a tool that could be used as a listening tool in an organization, that can drive the organizational health and happiness within the organization. So it will be a talk that in a way could be called as a workshop, as well as I'll be sharing some examples. And I think examples really help us to actually dive into the topics. And I hope that you can ask questions and maybe we'll have a discussion as well, wherever you would like. Awesome. So before I jump in, I wanted to tell you a bit about myself. I'm Irinka. I studied psychology and economics. I held graduate degree in human resource management, and actually that's where I got introduced to coaching. And I'm certified organizational coach as well as ACC. In terms of industry, I'm still part of the industry. I spent some years as a technical recruiter. I recruited AI engineers and also for other engineering teams as well. And then I actually moved into AI department from recruiting, and I'm their chief of staff and CEO, and also I act like their organizational coach. So today I will walk you through an example, and actually it was my first project where I first took the role with the group. And till today, actually, I keep running the surveys, and we'll talk through this. Survey is a powerful tool. My coaching concentration is personal coaching, career coaching, and organizational development. Yeah, let's briefly talk through the agenda. I will quickly define what's organizational development coaching, which all of us knows, I'm sure, but just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And then we will dive into the organizational surveys, how to create them, what are the important steps. All of us have heard of surveys, but I think surveys can be really amazing tools, but also if it's not done correctly, it can be just another survey that we ask people to fill in, and that's not what we want to happen. And then what means to have a happy and more productive workforce, and at the end, some takeaways and time for Q&A. Awesome. So let's dive into defining organizational coaching. So organizational development coaching is a strategic process where a coach works with individuals, teams, or the entire organization to drive efficiency and effectiveness. As an organizational coach, you could be one second. You could be hired by HR departments, or company leaders may advocate for bringing you in. I'm, for example, an internal coach. Some people can be brought in as external hires. Really depends. I've seen both cases. Both cases have their positives and their negatives. Basically, as a coach, you can be engaging in individual coaching, one-on-one coaching, but also you could be looking at the organizational as a whole. And here are some of the examples that I've done as a coach. leadership development. So basically you work one-on-one with coaches in their development, or maybe you are designing various types of programs to help develop the leaders. You assess the organizational strength and weakness. I think surveys is one of the tools that you can use as finding what are the weaknesses and what are the strengths of the organization. And then based on that, implementing some changes. I think as a coach, you can really work on strengthening the organizations, helping with team collaboration, with productivity, with better communications, with improving some of the processes as well, and managing the change and helping with the cultural transformations. I think that's where coaches come in. Yeah, there are a lot of other things, and we can be talking about what organizational coaches can do all day, but I feel like these are the things that really stand out and part of the organizational coaches, OD coaches toolkit. So today's talk is the power of listening, and I want to frame the survey, the organizational survey, as a tool that you can use to listen to your organization and to truly understand what are some pain points and what are some things that are going well, and then through your people, create the change and make the place a better place. However, there's not just, you can't just go in and make a survey and think that, okay, I did my job, things will go great now. There are a lot of steps that you need to go through to make sure that it's a successful survey, right? And to me, these are like 6 important steps that will help you run a successful survey and then make an actual organizational change. And we'll go through each of the steps in details, right? The first one is identifying the problem, then creating the survey afterwards, and obviously analyzing the results and presenting it. Action steps, right? You can't run the survey without any action steps. And then creating the changes and then evaluating how did everything go. Based on that, you will start another cycle if needed, and so on. So we'll go through each of the steps, step by step. So step 1 is identifying the problem, right? So you might be called by a leader, by HR partner, about or the organization as a whole, or maybe you are observing that there's some issues. And you want to understand the problem, right? What is actually happening? And they're telling you, let's say there is attrition. Help us out. Another thing that when you hear that there's a problem, if there is an available data and HR makes the data available to you, it depends how transparent the organization is. Review the data, right? You can't always just trust the words. You need to actually have some data, if available, in the back, and that's a more powerful point that actually, yes, this is a problem. Don't rely on one person. So if it's just one HR person saying that, listen, there is this problem and we need to fix it, talk to the organization, right? Maybe ask this HR partner, hey, who are some other leaders I could be talking to make sure that this is actually the problem. And then you need to, before you go into steps, you need to be merged with the organization. You need to understand how the organization works. You need to meet people. You need to review if they're team documents to understand how they're working. Attend organizational events so people know who you are. People trust you. So you're slowly building this trust. And if there's some team meetings, like, maybe if you're working with engineers, there's scrums or there some team ceremonies, just join them so that people know your face. So these are just some examples how you can build your trust and build your brand within the organization. So let's say we identified the problem. After that, we need to decide, okay, there's this problem. Is the survey and actually the right approach for us? You need to, first of all, have a strong buy-in from leadership and HR partners. And what I mean by this is not only they know that there's a problem, they're also ready to partner with you, right? You feel that they're ready to implement the changes and they will listen to you and they're open to changes, right? Second of all, you need to make sure that they're committed to implemented changes, right? If the results that come out of survey are not what they believe in, they still need to listen to it, right? And they are committed to implementing the changes, because we can't just do the survey and then say, okay, we're not doing anything about this. Have some partners within the organization who are will partner with you and have this strong relationship. Really often this organizational partner can be head of the department, or maybe they could be, you know, some other leaders, or some maybe even individual contributor who has huge reputation in the department, trust them, they have a lot to say. So to find these partners. Sometimes, for my example, I knew AI department for many years. So I already had some, I hired half of the team. So I had this relationship. So for example, as an internal coach, that helped me a lot because everyone knew my face. So for an example, I mentioned attritions. This is how one of the problems that you might be called in. So I had this case a few years ago after COVID. In COVID, hiring stopped, and then in 2022, all the companies in the US at least started hiring, which means that for 2 years, people were not leaving the jobs. And then all of a sudden, everyone, it was like a outflow of people. So I was called in to understand what is going on, right? Is it just because of the market that people are leaving, or maybe there are some other organizational issues that we have that we need to fix to face this attrition? So this is where I got called in. And first of all, obviously, we looked at the data, right? The HR partners came in and we looked at the comparison of the 5 years. And yes, it confirmed that attrition was a lot higher. And then we started, I noticed that, the department head was very, very engaged. He really wanted to make changes and make sure that we stopped so-called bleeding of people out of the organization. So that's when we decided, okay, surveys would be a great tool, and let's go ahead because we're ready to make changes regardless the outcome of the survey. So next step is to create this survey. But before I jump into creating the survey, any questions about step 1? Okay, I'll take silences. No questions. So creating the survey, right? We can't just jump in and create a survey. We need to get more data, right? It's a great opportunity to ask questions. You don't want to have multiple surveys per year, right? Like, it's a lot of effort that we're asking people. You can have multiple, but you want to get as much information as you want and can from the one survey that you're running. So understand the area of concern, right? For our previous example, that's attrition, but maybe there's some hypothesis that leadership has, that, maybe we have too many meetings, or maybe some processes are not the best. So let's have some questions around it to double check. Maybe people don't have support from their leadership. Maybe people want more development. So based on that, you start thinking, okay, what are some of the questions and some of the areas that I want to look at within the survey. Then understand who is your target audience, right? Is it, are you doing the survey for the whole organization, or maybe you're just asking questions to the individual contributors or the team leaders or the manager layer? For example, like the way I do it, I have a separate survey for individual contributors, and then I have a separate survey for leaders. Because at least in our case, it makes sense to separate it because they're different areas that each, and different responsibilities that each of these layers are facing. When you create a survey, it's really important in the beginning of the survey to explain the purpose to the audience, whether you write an email, whether you, within the survey in the beginning, have a quick explanation. And also, if you're asking people not to identify themselves, make sure that in the survey it said that it's confidential. I run confidential surveys just because I think people are more honest when we don't know who they are. And also, just to add to that, you need to make sure that you pick questions that will not narrow down to who wrote it, right? So maybe you're not asking of their locations, or maybe your department is so large that you can ask about the location. And then the length, right? I'm sure there are a lot of questions you want to ask, but you need to make sure that the survey is on point. Usually I say maybe keep it to 5 to 10 minutes and not longer than that, just because you don't want to run into this survey fatigue, and then at the end people just slowly answering, not really answering the questions, but running, just clicking on the answers. Okay. Pick the right question format. There are a lot of various question formats, and actually I will show you an example of the survey that you could run, and each of these questions. So there's a general temperature check. So like on 1 to 5 scale, how do you enjoy working here? Multiple choice, check that when you check mark as many answers, and then open-ended questions, right? It's good to think about for which area and which question, what type of question style makes sense. And then ensure the question structure and also the order. And what I mean with this is, let's say you want to check in on if person has good support from their leadership. You don't want to ask, hey, I really enjoy working, the statement question, for example, I enjoy working with my team lead and my manager. That's a double barrel question, right? Because you don't know who they're actually saying yes to or no to. And then organize the questions by theme, right? So maybe first you want to cover feedback for leadership, then you want to cover area of productivity. So it's also digestible for people, and they can, go through the survey quicker. And then think about what are some questions that you really want people to answer and are mandatory, and what are some optional questions. For example, open-ended questions I keep optional, just because a lot of people, when they see that it's an open-ended question and it's mandatory, they just fully skip the survey. But when you'll be working with the organization, you will know better how people respond to the questions and how much they like writing. Okay. Oops. I don't know why my slides are not moving forward. Sorry, 1 second. Let me reshare it because it stopped moving forward. Then we want to think about the participation rate, right? How do we keep the participation rate high? What is a good participation rate? For example, if you do some research, they say, okay, 30 to 40% is considered as a good participation rate. For my organization, I think 30 to 40 is really low. For me, if it's not above 60, it's not good. Just because we've, from the first survey, we had over 70% participation rate, and I tried to keep it close to that for this year. I think we did a fifth one. So you need to, it's also based on organization, right? How engaged people are and what is the right participation rate for your organization. And then what are the steps to get to participation rate? Think about distribution, right? How do you want to share it? For example, for us, emails is not enough. There is also Slack. So we share channels through Slack. There's also another communication channel that we share. This is the survey links from there. I also ask leaders, hey, make sure that in your team meetings, share the link to the survey, so that I make sure that every channel is covered and there's no one who says that I did not see the survey. So that's what I mean when I say think how you want to distribute the survey. Identify the champions. So champions are respected and trusted members of the organization who believe in your work. And actively support you. This doesn't have to be a head of the department. It could be an individual contributor who you have good relationship with, who has your trust, and who will, tell their teammates and other people that, let's participate, let's share. It could be not just one, you can have multiple champions if you want, or maybe you just have one or two. And then sometimes it makes sense to also do a pilot, right? Maybe you have 10 close, let's say work with engineers, close engineers that you trust. Maybe have them run the survey, like take the survey first and see what is their feedback before you actually implement it and send it to 400 people, let's say, or 500 people. I don't know why it keeps freezing. Sorry about that, but actually we were gonna switch to the example of survey as well. Can everyone see my screen? So this is what I mean, right? Basically, it's a quick introduction. As you can see, it's really, really short. Just nothing insane, just help us improve the work environment. And then there's some questions, right? These are the statement questions. And we use emojis to kind of like help people digest the questions as well. We also give option of other. So if they want to add more comments to each of the areas, you can do that as well. Let's look at some other questions as well, other style questions. These are some of the, we wanted to check on the motivation that year. So we wanted to ask, okay, what motivates you, right? What are the motivator of people that keeps an its job? Because the problem was attrition. So people could check here as many things, as many boxes as they wanted. And then this was like, how much do you enjoy working here? It's highly dissatisfied, highly satisfied. And then the open-ended questions, as you can see, the rest of the questions have asterisks. So it's like mandatory, but then, okay, tell us a bit more. This is optional if you want to share more. So we give people this choice to whether they want to answer to the question or not. Any questions before we jump into actually, we got the survey results and we're starting now to analyze the results. Okay, good. So analysis, usually, for my example, I do analysis, but sometimes you may have partners who, okay, I think someone raised their hand.
Thanks. I heard you make a distinction between ICs and managers, and
Yeah.
I wasn't clear what that distinction was when you were talking about the survey instrument.
Yeah, so for my organization, in my example, it makes sense to run separate surveys for our leaders and then separate surveys for our individual contributors. And that's why, and are you asking like what is the difference between managers or individual contributors, or I guess like why? What's the reason behind?
Instrument. I wasn't sure if you meant like a different instrument for each group, or it's the same instrument, or
yeah, the survey, it would still be the survey. However, it will be different questions. So managers would get different set of questions.
Because the reason I'm curious about that is, I just wonder how can you compare how maybe individual contributors opinions differ from leaders on the same question. So how do you?
Yeah, it actually won't be the same question. So for example, how much you enjoy working somewhere, like at the given company, that will be the same question. But probably managers will have more questions focused on, okay, tell me more about how you work with your stakeholders, right? So more what managers do and how what their day-to-day is like, right? Managers interact with other leaders, managers interact with other departments. But maybe also managers and individual contributors need questions around, do you feel like you're challenged in the role? That question will be the same. Do you feel
So
like
there's an overlap. There is
there might
overlap.
be, exactly.
Okay,
There
thank
could
you.
be, yeah. So some questions where it makes sense would be overlap, but day-to-day questions probably will be different because managers' responsibilities differ from individual contributors' responsibilities. However, you can design the survey that basically is for everyone, right? And you have this question that describes everyone's day-to-day and touches everyone's day-to-day. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Perfect. So we got the results now, and we need to do analysis, right? It's some of the organizational coaches work with the data partners, for example, who help them go through this process, right? With cleaning the data, sorting the data, etc. I do it myself because I don't have any other partner. Then you look at the quantitative results and then qualitative. So qualitative would be more of written comments, right? And you want to summarize them, bucket them, and put them, put them into more digestible feedbacks, right? So maybe it's a one-page feedback. However, the issues that are coming up there is productivity. So you're basically sorting that, right? Here in this comment, I'm here that the issue is productivity. So another comment about productivity, and so on. Find correlations, right? Maybe if you ask the question about location and you're seeing that within this location, everyone is complaining about too many meetings, right? So what is happening in, let's say, in London office? Let's dig in here, right? That's somewhere we want to dig in. And then visual representation. That's more like when you're trying to think about presenting, how do you visually present these results so that management then digest it? Something that, if you are doing your second survey, it might be good to look at the previous results and see if you are asking some of the same questions, how do results are similar or different from the previous years? Okay, so now we have results, but we have to present them, right? After our analysis. You need to understand who you're presenting to. For example, if you're working with engineers, engineers need numbers. Engineers need a lot of data. Engineers don't care whether your slides are beautiful or not. You need to know that. If you're presenting to executives, that means your presentation needs to be very sharp, very on point. Maybe they don't need that many anecdotes or stuff. Maybe they don't need that much data. They just need actions. So it needs to be short and on point. With engineers, you need to always have, for example, slides in the back where they will be like, actually show me numbers. I don't know if I trust what you're saying. Give me the numbers. You always have to have those maybe slides in the back where you will show, yeah, these are the numbers, because they're more analytical thinkers. If you're talking to sales, they love stories. So with them, you will have to have more anecdotes and more stories. So you really need to understand who are your stakeholders when you're presenting the results and picking the right format as well. And then tell the story, right? Not just say, okay, these are the results, but try to tell the story that this is what I've been noticing. These are for one location or for one certain group, this is what comes up. Somehow figure out with data how you want to tell the story. And then think about next steps, right? So these are my observations, and this is what I'm offering. Let's discuss what we actually want to have within the next steps, so that you start the conversation you invite the leaders into the conversation about the next steps. And yes, exactly. So like that will help you to create this discussion, right? Is it a good next step? Is it a not good step, etc. Another thing is sometimes surveys don't give you enough results. So maybe, or actually you present the results to management and they're like, this makes sense, but with surveys, I just know that the problem is that people are not as productive and something is in the way, but we actually need more information. What is getting in their way? So that's when maybe going and running focus group discussions with additional questions is what gives you more information. Because like really often what I've seen is, okay, I understand that people are not as productive, but what is actually causing them not being productive? Can you go and get me more information? So then I've done the focus group discussions. So what I want to show you all is how you can present. We always think of slides, but that's a reason why I'm not showing you the slide example, but I'm actually showing you a Miro board. I don't know if any of you have used a Miro board. Basically, it's a board that I use for various things. But basically, yeah, these are like options of how you can present. So like, this is the participation rate, what type of format we had, what were the results of the survey. It's just to have something more fun and something different. I'm just showing you this as, everyone thinks of, okay, I always have to present results in slideshows, but there's some other tools that you could be using in showing the results as well. Now action steps, right? As I said, surveys are great, but if you don't do anything, you'll have very low participation rate next year. So you always have to make sure that you create the next action steps with your stakeholders and that they're bought in. They that they will actually go in and do work. Another thing is when you, at least I have I'm a strong believer in transparency. So I always have a presentation afterwards. When I run the survey, I go and do the presentation to the whole group. It's but sometimes also there are different ways you can do it. For example, you can be the speaker and presenter of the results, or maybe you do it locally, right? When the department is really, really large, maybe you want to do different presentation for London folks, different presentation for New York, different presentation for Tbilisi folks, and just have this various presentations that is more tailored to those groups as well. But so that people know that we heard what you said, here are the results, and these are the action steps that we will do for you. And be honest, right? I think it's very, very, very okay to say that there was a lot of feedback, a lot of great ideas, but we can't action on everything. They're just, these are 3 things that will change, or these are 2 things that will change. And people appreciate it. People appreciate the honesty. For example, the action steps, I'll go back to this as well, could be this. For example, one of the issues we had was productivity. People were complaining that we have too many meetings. And what we came up with is, and I work with engineers, and they need time to just sit and think. We decided that we'll call it a deep work day, no meeting day. So on every Wednesday, we basically say that you can't schedule a meeting on anyone's calendar because this is the deep work day. And it actually helped with the productivity, and that was the solution to the productivity problem. And then we also said that we work in a hybrid environment. So a lot of people complain that, I come into the office and I'm still on Zoom. It doesn't help. So basically we said on Tuesdays, let's do a preferred office day so that people can actually brainstorm in person and do some whiteboarding and those things all in person. So this is just like some examples of, we only signed up for 5 steps. And then you see like the emojis of like what is done and what is still in progress. It's because actually you're seeing what I presented 6 to 9 months after as a reflection back to people that what was done and what is still in progress. Okay, any questions before we step into our last 2 steps? Okay. Implementation change is, for each strategy, you need to have action steps. And it could be like, okay, we want to improve productivity. It's whenever you say, okay, Wednesday, no meeting day, it's a simple thing. You just say it's a no meeting day, you block everyone's calendar. But there's some larger initiatives that actually needs a lot of steps. So you need to help the organization leaders to break it down by manageable steps so that they can make that change and have timelines for each task. If you don't have a timeline, people don't get things done. So have some milestones and some timelines, and also think about what are the roadblocks that we will be running into and how we can avoid them. So kind of like do this brainstorming before you actually start solving the problems, and that helps with actually implementing the changes. Again, this is a great place to bring in the champions back. It could be leaders in this case, because with changes, you usually need leaders' support. So for each of the initiatives that you're running, it's good to have a champion. So it's not just you by yourself, but you actually have different folks working with you, and more ownership, right? And more trust from people as well. And the last step is evaluation. how did we do, right? It's been 6 to 9 months or so after the survey results. How did we do? It's quite important step. You can just go next year and do the survey, or in 6 months, or however fast you want to do the second round. Were we able to implement everything? If not, why not, right? What are the learnings? What do we want to evaluate in the future surveys? What I do is usually communicate back before running another survey that, it's last time, this is what it did, this is what we agreed on, and these are the results. And be honest with people again if you weren't able to make some changes. And again, you don't always have to be the presenter. You can rely on other people. And another thing is that when you report back the results and you are in this communication with the organization, you usually get more higher participation rate, because people feel heard. You're talking to them, you're with them, you are sharing the results, you're honest. So yeah, before we jump into the next section, any questions? Okay, and why is this important, right? Why do we care? Why do we want to make our organization be happier and more productive? Just a few reminders, right? And something that I tell managers as well, and leaders and department heads, is that it is important for your employees to be heard, because that helps them to be more engaged and more effective. They're more dedicated, they're happier, they're leaving. That may lead, when they're more dedicated, they will probably less likely leave the job. A lot of the times people think that it's just the money that keeps people. No, like when they're dedicated and they're happy, they stay. People are more productive when they're heard. They're more empowered, so they might be more creative with their ideas as well. So you have more quality workforce for that reason. They're confident that they can share new ideas and they can be open with you. So that will bring more innovation to your organization. And people want to learn and grow and be better employees. So you're almost serving yourself with this to have stronger, more creative, and more productive workforce. And some takeaways. So today we talked about survey, but this is just one of the many tools that you can use. I talked about surveys because I've done them and they work for me and for the organization that I'm in. But this is just one of the tools that you could be using to give voice to your organization. It is important to listen to your people and to your organization and identify your organization blind spots. And it is important to take action, right? You need to take action and you need to make changes. And also don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to make a change and then say, this change didn't work. We need to go back to how things were before. Honesty always works, I think. Obviously, you need to be careful how honest you are, but you need to be honest with people. And lastly, if you are from an organization, don't forget to hire an organizational coach. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming and too much content, but I would like to open for the questions if anyone has any questions or comments, or wants to share their experience. Maybe you have also done surveys or some other tools to help organizations with facing issues or making people talk and share things more openly. Yeah, go ahead.
I have another question. I'm curious about AI and your experience with AI and summarizing the data that you collect.
Oh yeah, it's a great tool. Actually, for example, like when you have, I think it's really good with written comments. It's really good to, obviously you need to make sure that you are it's within your company's compliance when you use this data and put it into ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using. But it's really good when you have, let's say, 200 comments and you want to bucket them, right? So it's really good at sorting the questions. So when we say sorting, the answers, so it will sort it for you by, let's say, productivity, and then you can start reading the comments. That's how I use it. Help me sort. And then when I have it bucketed, it's even easier than to summarize it. I have tried summarizing them. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes I say, actually, the summary is quite off, so let me do it myself. But with sorting data, it's really good tool.
And then I had another question as well.
Yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
stop if anyone else has
Oh, no,
questions.
go
I don't-
ahead, go ahead.
And the other question was around the use of when you were talking about the presenting problems, do you have templates that you use for various themes? You know, if it's team dynamics, conflict, whatever the themes are that come up as the presenting problem, do you have templates that you start with, or do you start each survey from scratch?
So now I have templates. Actually, another tool that this year for the first time I used is actually AI helped me with some question brainstormings too. When I had the areas that I wanted to go into and cover in the survey, it actually helped me brainstorm some of the questions that, was a good start, and then you edit the questions to match your organization. Template-wise, the first survey was a lot of work because it was basically building the template, and now I kind of build on my survey and I change it every year and I adjust. But I actually don't use any templates other than my own. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was wondering about, like your own templates that you've
Yeah,
created. Sort of. Okay.
Yeah. It's basically my own templates. Yeah.
And do you have any suggestions if you're starting from scratch with creating your templates? Any resources that you would recommend that are out there that you found helpful in the process?
Good question. There's some resources that, I mean, Googling wise, you can come up and find some questions and then tailor it. A lot of resources within Google. I think ChatGPT can brainstorm and throw some questions at you as well. And then like a lot of tips on like the question structure, right? Just think about how you want to question structures the right way. But I think the other 50% is knowing your organization and then making sure that it speaks the language. It's not this official question, but it's more tailored to the organization, and the question also speaks the organizational language.
Thank you.
Would be my tip. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the questions. Any other questions? I know we're right on time. Eka.
Irinka, how do you convince people in the organization that this survey is important? Because, yeah, as I used to work at governmental organization in Georgia, not it was a research institution actually. People were very lazy to do these surveys. So they thought that it was not important. So, what can you suggest in this case?
Yeah, so for me, and I talked about it a little bit in the beginning, is you need to have your personal relationships with these folks, right? For them to almost do it because they trust you, right? So it's what works for me is getting to know the organization. So when the email goes out, they know who is Irinka that's sending this email. So it takes a lot of time before sending the survey to show your face and be in their team meetings, be with them, show some work, maybe run a training or something before, so that people get to know you. Who is this person that's, behind the survey? One is, yes, making yourself known to the organization and building trust with them. For me, that's enough. And then another thing is champions, right? Have some people whether it's a manager of those folks or whether it's someone part of the organization that's strongly trusted, have them share the survey as well for you, right? And say, not if there's a manager and people will fill it in because they fear the manager, that's not good. You need to also pick right who is your champion that you're asking to share the survey. It's like a trusted and respected person, not feared person, for example. Third one, people try at other companies also incentives, like fill in the survey and they're like these prizes and there will be 3 winners who win this prize or whatever. I don't like that approach too much. You know, they do here like, oh, fill in the survey and be one of the $50 Amazon gift card winners. But for some people it works. I think like you need to get to the culture where people care, which means, yeah, there's a lot of other work they need to be doing, that people care enough that they want to share what they to improve the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other question? I know we're past the time, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
So if we don't have any questions, and I see there is not any questions more, so we can go to the closing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. Thank you, everyone. And feel free to connect with me. I always love when my network grows. And if you have any questions, also feel free to ping me on the site as well. Happy to chat more. And thank you to the ICF Sakartvelo chapter for organizing this talk and giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you for all being with us today. We truly appreciate your presence and engagement to the International Coaching Week event, and heartfelt thanks to Irinka for this really inspiring and helpful workshop. So see you soon.
Awesome.
I hope
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
we meet to our next meetings also each other. So bye-bye.